RunThrough event. So RunThrough, our whole brand is about inspiring an active nation through running, and that is runners from all levels, all backgrounds, newbies, people who it took them 10 times to get out the door to make it to the event because they didn't know if the running was for them, and they've turned up. But also we're trying to engage the really dedicated club runners, and then also trying to offer an opportunity for those who are in, like, leading athletes in the area. They're training really hard, they're dedicating their life to it, they're sub-elite, they're not like getting paid a full-time wage to do this, offering them a bit of prize money so they turn up, and we're putting on some events that are really fast courses, so they've got a really good opportunity to like perform and get the best out of themselves. So yeah, cheers for joining me. We've got Rich and Cameron and myself, Chris. So yeah,
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
We'll talk about Jarrow.
Yeah, let's talk.
So how we're getting these elites in. So firstly, we've got a prize list. So yeah, we decided to pay £200 for the winners as long as they get under a certain time, which is consistent with all of our races. But for this one in particular, we wanted to encourage as many good runners to turn up from the area as possible to raise the profile of the event. And for that, we've offered £200 for anybody under 30 minutes on the men's side and anybody under 33 on the women's side, any position. So if 20 people run under those times, they will all get the payout in addition to the first place prize as well. So
interesting. So how did you go about, like, I don't know, deducing what would be the best times to have, let's say, £200? So if you're on a male, you run sub 30 minutes, and you're a woman and you run sub 33 minutes. How did you go about sort of like deducing which is going to be like, I don't know, a suitable time for enough people to get under and get that benefit?
I think when we are looking at results, like, your eyes initially like pick up if you see that people have ran under 30 on the men's side, because they're the first results that you see. The women's results are often a bit more buried because they're being mixed in with the race. If you see a race where like half a dozen people have run 29 minutes, you're like, that's obviously a flat, fast course. Yeah. So it's just an obvious barrier of 30 flat. And then we just went for the equivalent time in the ladies' race to, see if we can get some of the girls to come as well and run flat out.
No, I know when you sent me this, I was really surprised at sort of how generous it was. Like £200 for sub 30. I know it's not an easy feat, but
definitely not.
There's a lot of people capable of doing it. So
definitely,
I think that's it is a really generous offer in that £200 sub 30, and then sub 33 for the women as well, plus your first place as well. It's what you need, I think, to sort of generate interest at that top end as well, to get good quality athletes in good races on fast courses. That's absolutely the right way to go.
I mean, to put it into perspective, I texted you, didn't I, when I seen the £200 saying that I was considering doing it. Yeah. I've never done a 10k before.
You'd never make the start line.
Sub 30 I could potentially do that. So it is going to attract, the crop of low, even like top sub-elite, even some elite athletes from around the area, all the way through, as well as people who may have a shout at it, or maybe even just want to try and tag on to those people who are sub 30-minute runners for as long as possible, and potentially dip under, or even get as close as possible to those barriers. Really.
Yeah, it's funny, when I got the message about it, I didn't think that I'd be anywhere near running sub 30, so it's good to see how my mindset's nowadays. Yeah, I don't know whether they account for 15 stone though.
They've actually got something about that on I think Strava now have started. They've got like a weight category as well.
Have they?
Yeah, I remember one of our mates was obsessed about that.
If you had a pound for pound race, I'd be up there.
Exactly.
Easy.
There's something like that on Strava now. But the money, we put some money on the Quayside 5k as well. We've had prize money there for quite a while.
Yeah.
And like Scott Beattie ran amazing this year, ran like 13:45. It was the second fastest winning time in the UK this year at the time of running it. And seeing somebody like Scott do that on the Quayside, all the local club runners who've seen that he's been running fantastic out in America and he's been one of our leading guys, it's really inspiring for them, because they're like, oh, there's this guy who we know is really fast, and actually I've just lined up with him. And that's sort of the beauty of athletics, especially road races, that you can line up next to the top guys and girls.
So, like you just said there, like, somebody who's just entering and maybe running for charity, those people that make up the numbers as well have a huge contribution to the elite side. I've been there and I've run in road races where there's been a lot of people and I've been on the elite start list. and those are the people that bring the crowds and the atmosphere and
exactly.
and heights in the event for the elites as well. So it works both ways, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you say Quayside 5K, maybe we had 500,000 people on there. They're not actually coming down to see Scott Beattie because those people don't know them, but they are coming to see their mate who might be raising some money for charity, and all those like other like inspirational stories on the way. And like bringing a crowd and a bit of atmosphere is a massive performance enhancement.
Yeah. No, you're totally right what you're saying, like relating it to that feel of seeing like elites in competition or whatever you deem elites. But you know, if you think back, like the first time that you went to a UK Champs, and you might have seen like Greg Rutherford in the warm-up area or Farrer in the warm-up area, and you're lining up in the 1500 heats, and you're thinking, God, if I make the final, that'd be great. And you're around them, and that's for someone who, like, locally people would deem, like at the time, like us type of athletes, as in like that would fit that elite definition. So, but even when you go to them events, you feel that because they're elite athletes, and that's what it's really like. So I think that's great about these events, because you're going to get, if you get the quality there, which it looks like you have got the quality there, for the people that are there is sort of in that masses category, they're going to be seeing what their perception of elite athletes is.
Yeah, and in endurance running especially, like cross country is the prime example, there's this mutual camaraderie as well, where it doesn't matter what level you're at, everybody's gone through their own journey to get to the start line with whatever factors have affected them, including the training. But then everybody's got the same journey from the start line to the finish line, because it's a challenge no matter what level you're at. So you finish and everybody can talk about it. So you can, Mo Farah can talk about the Great North Run with somebody who's took 3 hours and ran their best PB, because they've just had that similar experience.
It resonate, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the same for, I mean, I've got a friend who's now going to be, who's run for England, and one of their first events was only 3-4 years ago was a run through event, and now they're running for England. So their journey started somewhere like this.
Yeah.
So the elites are going to be resonating quite highly with the people who maybe don't see themselves there at the minute, but maybe one day have aspirations to get there as well. So
yeah,
it's the beauty of it, really.
And it also is like, with age, there's also people who come in at a much older age and go on to become like a Masters International, things like that. And there's one guy who we've trained with, Terry. He didn't take athletics until he was like 40, roughly. He was just smoking and drinking and overweight. You won't mind us saying that, because it's like, it's inspirational that he then went and ran under 15 minutes for 5K at age 47. It's like crazy.
International athlete now as well.
Exactly. So, yeah, the inspiration is on like multi layers, and it's really good. But yeah, we'll focus, I guess, on Jarrow, and I guess why we think this race specifically is a one to target, with it being fast. And Jarrow's a place that the Jarrow track's close to my heart, because the clubhouse is actually named after my grandpa, which is
nice,
really good. Yeah. So trained here my whole life. This is me spinning around the car, so you might get seasickness here. But I'm just doing a quick drive round just to show how flat and fast this is. Come out onto a housing estate. You start and finish on the track, actually, which I didn't show because I can't go around in the car. But there won't be cars there on the day, obviously. But yeah, it's just really, really flat. And to get a fast course, you need a lot of straight lines, so you can run as close to the race line as possible. You need sweeping bends, and you just need to have minimal or no gradient for as long as possible. All those factors contribute to you running fast. And even if you look here, like all the tree lines, they will just take so much of the wind as well. So if you're if you're out in the countryside, you've got wind that can affect you quite a lot more as well.
Even the area itself, like, it's a built up urban area. So in terms of, like you say about the wind, like you've got the trees, but then you've got the houses on either side. So it's not like, you know, the 10Ks that you'll go to where you're running on the back roads and you've got open fields, and it's not worse than when you turn up to a race and you're looking for a fast time and you've got a decent course, and it's absolutely blowing a gale, and you know you've got no shelter and you get battered by the wind for 10K and then end up running a poor time. Whereas this, fingers crossed. I don't know what's the weather doing on the day, do you know?
It was good when I checked the forecast the other day. It was
Right.
forecast to be all right. So yeah, I'll have a look at that.
Well, it's that time of year as well where the weather's not too hot.
Yeah,
It's also not too cold. Nice and cool. It's perfect for like distance running, really.
Autumn, spring, you get loads of like 10Ks, half marathons where people are gunning for them because it's just that favourable condition. Like, yeah, people who have hay fever, that's gone, or people who run on the track have had a little end of season break and then they're getting back into it. And yeah, it's before you get really affected by the UK winter. So yeah, it's really good. But I've put a graphic up there of the course.
What's the start time?
9 a.m. as well.
Right, nice.
It would be good if you could have a longer lie-in. I'm not going to lie. It's just, especially with a new event, we've got to deal with all the stakeholders and the residents and the businesses and the councils and get them to agree to close the road. So if we can be having the roads back open at like 10:30 and most people are going to get out of bed and not even realise the event's gone on, that's great for us because then next year the event can go ahead again. Yeah. But yeah, we start and finish on the track, which you can just about see. And I've got that image in backwards actually, but yeah, you come around the track, out, and then onto this like long out and back section.
Yeah.
And on the map that people have seen, I seen Runner's World actually posted it, and they were like, "Oh, it's got loads of 180s in there," but it actually hasn't got hard 180s. No.
I mean, we've ran this, but not recently, obviously. But we've ran these routes in the past many years ago, and it's that, especially that stretch up and then looping around the houses. We've ran that before, and they're not 180s. And I mean, even if they were, look how many straight lines you've got and how long the straight lines are. Like,
exactly,
it doesn't matter.
Which race is it? It's Telford, isn't it? That you turn back on yourself.
Telford's
look how fast that race
exactly
is. That's one of the fastest
Abbey Dashes as well,
right?
isn't it? Abbey Dash, you go out and you do a loop round the bottom, then you come back up. So, they're two of the, probably off the top of my head, the quickest courses I know in England anyway. I don't see why this can't be quicker.
And it's not as hard a turn at the end. Yeah. The gradient I've got on this, it's pretty much flat. I mean, you've got to get your spirit level out for half the course.
Yeah.
I mean, that when you look on these graphics from Strava or anywhere like that, they always make it look extreme, but on the scale, that's like 20 to 30 meters. So you've got 10 meter gradient change across the whole of the course. Well, 8 meters it says on there, which totally flat. And just look at them like 180s. It's actually it used to be a dual carriageway with 2 lanes each side. Yeah. When you get there, it's like it's a sweep. So you've got to do that one twice. This one to get back into the track again. It's like a sweeping bend, and the one at the far end of the course, it's like 90-degree turns, but they're sweeping. So yeah, it's just going to be rapid from all angles.
Yeah, I feel like them pictures didn't really do it justice as well from running around there and know what they actually and how wide that road is. I don't think that the turns wouldn't be. It's something I wouldn't have even thought of when I was running. Like, oh God, is there a 180 turn in this 10k? It's more. It's the gradient's the big thing, and then the fact that it is so straight with very few turns. Yeah,
and then even the end, like
you're churning away.
This should be class if you've got a little group of people coming towards the end of the race as well. Because if you're spectating, you've got a few vantage points. You can pretty much see the whole of the last K snaking around like the outer track, and then the inner track. That's a concrete path, tarmac path around the outside, and then back around the main track into the finish. So
great finishing on the track.
Yeah,
very famous stadium as well. Some very famous athletes.
Exactly. So Jarrow and Hebenese, you've had 2 world champions in Steve Cram and David Sharp at under 20 level. And I think if it does get close towards the end, like there will be some little tactical nuances of the course, like around maybe those turn points for making moves and getting back into the stadium, taking like a shorter line and making somebody run wider. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Let's talk about some of the leading runners, Yeah, we have got some. So we've got some good runners on, especially on the men's side. I haven't had as much interest on the ladies' side. I have asked quite a few, and hopefully next year we'll get even more. So we've got 2 of the leading Northeast athletes who have run pretty good for 5K this year, like 16:19, 16:44. And the benefit on the ladies' side is they're in the main field. There's going to be quite a few male pacemakers around them, so basically they can get in the race and they're in there for the ride, aren't they? They're just
As good as it gets as well, especially if you can tuck in behind some tall men and just, jump on the train. I mean, it's the same for guys, as well. Like if like we were just talking about before with sub 30 minutes, if you're on the brink of sub 30 minutes and you can jump on them, it's the same for the women with the men. If there's men that your ability, I mean, these are very, very good ladies.
Yeah.
And if they can jump on the back of some very, very good men or even, decent club runners, they could be pulled around to a very big PB.
I think as well, it's always hard when like you just look at a sort of a screenshot, a snapshot of what their PB is for 5 and 10k.
Yeah.
Like it gives you no context to where they're at in their training. What I like about this little setup you've got here is we've got their achievements as well. And Sophie Pickett, Northeastern Northern 5k road champion.
So she can win.
So she's winning races.
Yeah.
So you're thinking there, but you've got someone who can race it. And they might not have clocked the time that they're capable of yet, but they're winning races. And I think, I know the aim of this race is a fast, flat race and getting times, but it's also about winning it as well.
Yeah. I think we should look at the course again and then look at some of these athletes and say if you, not saying how they're going to do it, but if I was racing some of these runners, I'm going to be thinking where's that guy going to make a move?
Yeah.
So the course, again, we said it's pretty straightforward. They're getting out and then they're getting onto the roads. I think the first lap is going to be a group, unless somebody does just go hard from the start. But I think the main thing is when they come to the second lap, once they've gone round the turn point at the end, somebody's going to make a big run for home if they feel like they haven't got a big sprint finish. But then that 180 towards the end, when they get there, it's going to be, you've got two choices. You can either run hard into it to try and make that concertina effect where if somebody's not in a good position, they've had to slow down, speed up. If you're a cross-country guy, you want that sort of thing. Yeah. Because you've got no gradients to help you out. So the only thing you've got is slow down, speed up, acceleration. That if somebody's a track guy wanting to sprint, they have to... They want to wait and do nothing. They want everything to be a really smooth, steady pace.
Really, aren't they? I mean, you want people around you so you can sit on them, you switch off, don't need to think about it, especially if you're going over, let's say you're a 1500 meter runner. Running a 10k is a big difference. And the last thing you want is to be having to push on the pace on your own when you've got a load of 5-10k runners who are very, very strong, especially quite strong cross-country runners. And if you look at the start list,
yeah, so we've got Sam Charlton, Callum Johnson are just known as being exceptional cross-country runners. Callum's won the national and inter-counties cross-country. Sam Charlton, I think, might have been the first person ever to win the national, the English schools and the inter-counties all in the same season. Yeah. And those guys have got quick 10k PBs and this cross-country pedigree, but it's flat. So that how much is
it
that
is? It's a total game changer going from racing on the mud, undulating courses, big hills, long downhill sections, plus some of the courses that they'll have been running on, the national cross and the inter-counties, they're over 10k as well. So there's a limit to how far the 1500 lads can really do damage on the cross country because it's that bit further.
It's time as well, isn't it? It's slower.
But the road, it opens it up a bit more.
It does, especially at this time of year, like you mentioned, because we've got so Cameron Allen is the fastest on paper, 28 minutes 37, and he's got the fastest PBs at 1500 and 5k as well. So he looks on paper to have everything, but he made a huge improvement when he went across to America. And since he's came back, there's always a little bit of time that it takes you to readjust to that season. So yes, if this is sometime next year, and he's put quite a few string of races together and he's back at that level, fine. But in an October race in the UK when he's readjusting, is he there yet? Callum has moved up to doing the marathon and he is going to be thinking, you would think, he's got to make a move from further out. But if Callum runs, if somebody who's a strong guy goes from a long way out, you're not going to drop somebody who's a 28.5 guy. You're not going to drop somebody who's a 29.10 guy coming back from altitude training. So you take the risk if you lead it as basically being a pacemaker for somebody else. So there's then that fine balance, can I just run these guys into the ground and charge into the corners, charge out? Or does that do more damage to me because I'm just pacemaking? And then I think a little bit further down, you've got guys like Joe Armstrong has ran 3 347s this year, 1500 PBs. I think he's 28 now, but he's a guy who seems like he's been around for ages at 1500 metre, but he keeps making like season on season improvement. So he's still getting better. He this weekend was third on first leg at the Northern Road Relays. So he's getting better at the long distances. Hasn't done a 10k before. But if nobody goes and runs him out of the picture, he's still in good 1500 metre shape. So somebody like that is going to have a shout at the end if they don't drop him.
Thing is, as well, he's racing, and he's raced this weekend. So he's got a bit of sort of form going into it. I think third on third leg. That's, he's obviously in decent nick.
It comes back to what we discussed before as well. It's that time of year. Most people, they finish the season, the track season, they've not raced in maybe, let's say, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
People haven't shown the cards yet.
No.
We don't know what shape Callum's going to be in. We don't know what shape Sam's in, although we can only suggest. We've seen
Sam's at altitude, right? He's coming back from altitude for the race, training with Phil Sessman. You've been there, right? So Font-Romeu.
It's a tricky one.
How do you get back and know if you're going to run well or not?
It's one or two ways, isn't it?
It depends on how many times you've been, because I guess if you're an athlete, you're always going to compare previous sessions, right? Like if you're, let's say, when you were doing 15s even, right? Let's say we maybe have bread and butter sessions that you could go out and be like, last time I did this session, I did 10.4s in 59 seconds off a minute. Or I know I'm sort of in that shape. I'm consistently training around the same sort of times. I'm not sure if Sam's been to Font-Romeu before. I definitely know that he's been to altitude before, so I'm sure he'll know whether he's in good shape or not. Like, it's just, I guess, like banging out sessions that sort of like when you are to give you an indicator.
When you've came back from altitude, I haven't done it myself, but you can get like ups and downs of when you're going to perform on the way back. So what's the rough window for he's coming back to race? So he's training with guys who are really knowledgeable. So either he's got the experience himself, or he's using their knowledge to go, actually, I need to come down and then race straight after. Otherwise, I might get a bit of a lull. Like, what was your experience?
My experience has been mixed, actually. So I went to Kenya, and I went there actually injured. And that meant that it limited the amount of training that I did. It's very easy when you go to altitude to overdo things, train too hard, especially if you're on a training camp. But even if you go to Portugal, you see people who might work full time over students. They've got all this free time, and they overtrain more than what they did before, and mess things up. They come back, they don't run too well. If you look at when I went to Kenya, like I say, I came back. I hadn't done loads. I just did a lot of aerobic work, a lot of running. It was very hard because it was very high. But I came back and I didn't race straight away. I waited another maybe 4 to 6 weeks. I think it was I came back end of November. I waited about 4 or 5 weeks. And I ran really well because my training just went like this when I got back, right? When I went to Font-Romeu, that was pre-track season. I came back. I raced 3 days after touching down in the UK. I'd been to altitude for 7 weeks. I was a little bit injured at the time, but I couldn't get going. I just couldn't get going. I just felt awful from the get-go. Training was different, though, however, to what I had done previously. So maybe that was a contributing factor. But I have seen it before where people come down. Some people take a couple of weeks to adjust. Yeah. And sort of like.
And some people do it like the day after, don't they?
It's interesting to see how it goes.
It does. It's like anything in athletics, isn't it? There's no hard and fast rule for how anyone's going to go, and it's like going back to what we're saying, looking at snapshots. Like we look at times and think, oh well, they'll probably do this or they'll be in that shape. I mean, me and you were looking at someone's power of 10 before this, going, oh well, he ran that about 6 weeks ago, so he must be in better shape. And he ran that 2 weeks ago.
They might not be in better shape. Exactly. They might actually be in worse shape. You just don't
know, and that's. Yeah. I think it's probably a misconception of people. We discussed this before, but talking about elites, when you just look at a race and go, I don't know, say the 1500, you give a start list, Ingebrigtsen, he's the quickest in the field, so he's going to win.
Exactly.
It doesn't play out like that.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that like nobody's doing, which was sort of an inspiration for doing this sort of chat anyway. Like nobody's discussing about the tactics and how these things can just go and be very, very different to the fastest person winning. Like there's, even within good level club runners, there's an assumption that like, oh well, the fastest person's do they not just run faster than everybody else? Like there's so many little variables where you can slightly misjudge it and get it wrong. You misjudge a race and get it wrong by 10 seconds against one of these other guys, and they just sit on you and do you. That's there's just basically nothing written beforehand, nothing scripted. And there's quite a few different stories here about like how are these going to go. So some guys have not really shown their cards. Some of them have been in massively great form, but not showing anything currently. Some are showing really good track form, and then have continued after a little track end of season break. Like I said with Sam, he's coming down from altitude. That's going to go one way or the other. We've got some others in there. There's three really interesting stories I feel about people who live on the course.
All right, well, not live on the course.
Go on, then.
I want to dive in with somebody yet, right?
Go on,
we haven't mentioned him yet, but we know him and know a bit of his backstory. Lawrence McCord.
So that's what I was going to say about right. So,
right, this is what I
is on
think
the course.
He's a real dark horse.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily for the win, because there's some, I'm not saying he's not quality, but there's some real high end performers there. But he could easily be up there, because every time he seems to run, I'll get a WhatsApp off you going, seeing this result, and you're looking, how's he doing that now?
So he was a good runner up till under 20s level, and then he fell out of love with running. Well, I guess the whole training process, because he was just constantly getting injured. And after about 8 years of doing a bit of running and whatever, the whole COVID thing happened. He changed jobs, lived in Yorkshire, and then started getting into hiking and fell running and stuff. And then actually realised that he enjoyed that, but he's then been able to sustain 70, 80 mile with doing these wildly high, however many 1,000 feet a week of climbing. So he's running a lot slower on a lot softer ground. Yeah, and then a couple of years of doing that, and then persuade him to get himself on a road race. And he went from, I think it was 15:45 something for his 5K roughly. 8 years of not racing, first race, bang, 14:30.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Even I didn't expect him to be able to do that. So he's run under 14:29 twice and 14:30 this year, back to back.
Was that 67 at Great North as well?
Well, he ran two. So he ran Ilkley Half Marathon, which is a really hilly one, and just front ran it. He makes strange decisions in the race week, which he wasn't supposed to do that race. And then he was I'm just going to do it. Yeah, exactly. So it was a really hilly one. And then at the Great North, it's a slightly slower time, but it was really tough conditions. But 17th in the Great North run, there was not that many Brits ahead of him.
Yeah.
Only really top
so
guys
this is
ahead.
the thing, go back to
and
it all the
time. He's not got a 10k.
Where looking at their achievements, well, what they actually won? Because you can go out and have a one-off mad race and you clock this time, and then they're like, well, he's a 29-minute performer 7 days a week. Well, maybe you're there or thereabouts, but you're not going to do that every single day. Whereas he is running well, and that run at Great North, them conditions were awful. So to be up there in that position, his confidence is going to be high as well.
Because he was running a charity race as well, so he wasn't even in the elite field.
There's absolutely no pressure on someone like him. He's gone in, and I can imagine the way he'll be about it anyway. He's just going, I'm going to do a 10k race. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And if you're always knocking on the door as well, and then one day someone's going to answer, and you just have a big jump in performance as well.
Yeah.
So that could happen if he's continuously performing at a certain level and week in, week out he's hitting it. Usually you're due a jump. At some point.
He's hit them consistent now. Oh. So his gran lives on the course,
okay.
Just before that 180 U-turn. So his
when they say
running,
local, he's
exactly.
the definition of it, that isn't he?
But we warm up when we're training at Jarrow, and on the little 2 mile loop, which we call the George Lowry Memorial 2.1 mile loop. So George lives just off the course, as his parents do. And Peter Smallcombe, he lives in Monkton Village as well, which is the road's getting closed for it. So it's quite strange to think
the
that
locals you've literally got, if not one of them wins.
Yeah, you've got 3 guys who live within 500 meters of this.
Have you got security
for all their fans? And
you'll do.
Yeah, because George kept going he's my family keep going, you're doing the Jarrow, all of his mates, because they've seen the signs that we put up. So yeah, it'll be a class if they get a bit of home turf inspiration and perform.
We haven't mentioned Kieran Walker yet.
Yeah, so
he could be another one.
Kieran's actually, I think I put his 10k PB wrong there, but basically hasn't really done 10k. He's one of these guys who is probably due a massive jump at 10k,
definitely.
Because he started running, seemed to be doing all these local races. He was there in everything, and then he was doing half marathon, and then he's he's not really done a 10k, but he's obviously got hyper strong. He won a few half marathons. Again, it's like a winning thing, isn't it? He won the Brass Monkey, he won Edinburgh, won Carlisle half marathon. So top 20 in the Great North Run last year. So he's got the pedigree at half and marathon. But he is a young guy as well, so he should be able to run a fast 10k if he gets in the right conditions. So yeah, another like dark horse really for finishing right up there.
I mean, you'd like to think that, to be honest, most of the guys on that race, on that list, should I say, should be able to break 30 minutes potentially.
Yeah.
As long as they're like not coming off the back of their break, then there's good potential for it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I guess it's where, and we've mentioned it a few times, it's where they're at in their training blocks or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of quality there. Like, considering this is the first time this race is getting ran, like, to get them names, that's a big thing anyway. You get a good block of runners knocking in good times here, and then next year,
exactly.
People are going to look and go, well, why am I travelling down to Manchester to run 10k when I can go to that one in Jarrow in springtime? In autumn time, and knocking a fast time there. It's only going to grow. So
yeah, and we've got a Newcastle 10k in January as well, which is going to be like the same concept. So like after Jarrow, I'm going to be trying to do the same thing again, just try and build on it and just deliver these like good events where we've got really, really strong fields. So I'm going to sit on the fence, right, in terms of predictions. All I'll say is I think, like, obviously some of these guys who are like the strong guys are probably going to make a really long run for home because they're not going to want the unknowns of the track guys. But I don't know who's going to actually get out there for the win. But I'm going to let you two have your top threes and a winning time.
Winning time as well.
Yeah, go on then.
Sprung that on us.
I tell you, I'll throw a winning time out there. I'm going to say, I'll go conservative. I'll say a 29:22.
Winning time. What do you want to do first? Winning time or running order?
Running order. I think let's go that. Let's do that. Let's do top three.
Yeah, we'll do top three first. I'll let you go first, Cam.
Okay. It's a difficult one. I think I've tried to look at the power 10s of most of the guys on there. It's hard because you haven't raced in so long. If you look at Sam Charlton, he hasn't raced since track season. His last outing was 14:06, I think, somewhere in Europe.
Go on, put your neck on the line.
Yeah. Sorry, Sam. But yeah. And I looked, and then when he ran his PB 2 years ago now, he ran, I think 6 weeks prior to that, he ran over 15 minutes of 5k.
Okay.
So he's definitely in a better place. So and he's also altitude. He's going to be training hard. He's training, like I say, with the likes of Phil Sessamon. He's got a great coach and Helen Clitheroe. So I'm going to put him as the potential to win it. I do think it'll be closer. And I think Callum probably second, because I think doesn't matter where he's at when he's training, he's always very strong. He's consistent. I think he'll take it out hard. I think that's what I'd like to think that he would do. I think Sam will probably sit. And I think Cam Allen, I just don't know because I haven't seen him race so long. You know, in April, look at his personal best, like 3:41 for 1500. That's no joke for someone who's got like a 28 minute 37 seconds personal best for 10k and a 13:42 5k. So he's got the PBs across the board, and they were done. You know, the 5k was done last year, I think, and the 3:41. But the 10k was done this year. Yeah, that's rapid.
So what you're saying then, winning time?
So if he was in shape, then I think, you know, you'd like to think that he'd challenge for the win, but I haven't seen him race, so I'm going to put him in third. But the winning time, I'd say probably 29, 25. Yeah,
close then. One then red.
So I... Slightly different. For me, I'm going to go Callum Johnson for the win. I'm basing that on he's just a strong man, isn't he? And I think he's obviously in form.
He wouldn't ask to race if he wasn't in form.
Exactly.
That's my thought on these guys. But that's the same with Cameron and Sam. They're all asked, can they run? And I'm like, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, I just think so the reason I've gone Callum over, say, Sam, because they were the two for me. there's the question mark over Sam and the altitude.
Yeah.
And you don't know where he's going to be at when he's getting back, travel and things like that.
Maybe in a
as
month's time he'll go like this.
Exactly, yeah.
So
Is he just using this as just a benchmark? Right, this is where I'm at now, but in a few weeks' time, I'm going to be here because we've put the work in abroad or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm nudging for Callum, because I just think he's strong and he's running well at the moment. He's off the back of a few good results, and I just can see him maybe not taking it out, but being in that pack that's going to be steady paced, and then maybe from 6k onwards start really pushing it and grinding them down. He's going to have to get away from them, I think, though.
Yeah.
Especially Cameron Allen with 341 in his legs, because you don't want to be coming down to a 200-300 meter kick with someone like that, because there's a big gulf in basic speed there between Callum and Cameron. But I would go Callum first. I'll take. I'm going to put Sam Charlton second. Again, I think the question mark over the travel and the altitude, I was going to sort of be off the back of that. And then Cameron Allen in third. I just think you can't. I know I've went over this a few times in the pod about I don't like just looking at times and things like that, but then it's hard to
overlook. Yeah, it's hard to overlook when somebody's
that quality. Because
exactly.
there is real quality in them three there. Not disrespecting the rest of the field, but those are, they are real
on paper.
standouts.
On paper, they're the class of the field. I just hope that quite a few, not just on a personal level, but I hope on a level for these guys as well, that some of these guys do break 30, because it is a barrier.
I think the
ones who haven't done it, but are definitely capable. So you've got Larry, you've got Kieran, you've got Joe, the three standout ones who they should. That's the barrier for them for 10k, and they should really be getting that on their resume. So
I think. Whoa! You haven't let me give a.
Go on then. Your time. Sorry.
What's happening here? No, 2 to your service. 29-39.
29-39.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's actually all a minute faster.
Closely packed.
Ladies winning
race
time
as well. Yeah.
I don't know enough about the girls racing, to be fair, for the two leading ladies who've got themselves on the start list. All we can do is look at the stats, really.
You look at the five,
and add the winning. So I guess stats.
You got Sophie.
Sophie,
right?
she's a winner, and she was at the 5k, and she's ran 16:19. So these are
I think
the two standouts, really.
I think if they're in shape, they'll run PBs.
Yeah, they'll run PBs.
Because
will they get the 200 quid?
The weather and the sheer volume of runners that are going to be around that, they're going to get pulled round.
They'll definitely get.
So it's hard to say what they're going to run
if they're in.
But I think they'll both PB.
Yeah, whether they'll get under 30-30 to get the additional
33.
money, 33-30. Sorry, yeah, it is a big jump, but it's definitely something they can do. They're both young as well, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be good. I think the women will be definitely interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how if they run PBs, how big they run. If that can lead them on to the races, qualify for the races.
We've still got a few days as well, so hopefully people will see this or see a few more Instagram posts. I'll get a few people last minute being like, "Oh, actually, can I still run?" Well, yeah.
Me and you?
Just me. Yeah, exactly.
200 quid, I'll beat you. I ain't checking. Pound for pound. Easy.
Yeah, pound for pound. Yeah, fair play.
I'm at a wedding on Saturday. I definitely would have.
Right, well, thank you very much for coming and joining.
It's been a pleasure, Chris. I hope it's a successful event for you.
Cheers, and we'll see Cameron on the day commentating on the live stream. So
we'll need to hook up do the commentary for these races.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
In the commentary box.
There's this chemistry.
You're turning down this for a
wedding. I think I'll sack that wedding.
Right, cheers. Thank you very much, and until next time.
Thank you, Chris. Cheers.
Cheers.